Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join this webinar this afternoon with Urban Land Institute, where we're going to be sharing some insights around the 2026 ULI APAC Summit, which is taking place in Shanghai from the 25th to the 29th of May. We're going to take a couple of more seconds to wait for some more attendees, so please bear with us, but thanks to those of you who were on time. So just give us 1 or 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. Okay, well, I think we have a quorum. We've got about 25 people in the group so far, and if people pop in, that's great. But I think it's a good time to get started. So, first of all, again, welcome and thank you so much for taking time out of your Wednesday afternoon to join us. My name is Chelsea Perino, and I'm really pleased to be here supporting Urban Land Institute. I am on the executive committee of the Hong Kong chapter and also the chair of the Women's Leadership Initiative. And it's my pleasure to be a part of this exciting webinar. It's the first time we've done something like this in APAC, so thanks again for taking the time to join us. And a few housekeeping rules to get us started. First of all, this is supposed to be an informative webinar session. We've got some of our key leaders that are going to be a part of the APAC Summit with us today. If you have any questions throughout the conversation, please pop them right into the chat. There's going to be time for all of those to be addressed at the end. We don't have hand raising capabilities at the moment. So if anytime throughout, if you have any questions, just make sure you type them right in there and we'll get to them at the end. Also, please, I think that's it. Without further ado, to take you through the quick agenda, it's my pleasure to welcome some of our esteemed guests. We have CEO of ULI Asia Pacific, Alan Beebe, here with us, as well as Hei Ming Cheng and Tim Wang from our host and programming committees. They're the ones that are really helping to shape what the summit looks like. And then, of course, Mark Cooper, also part of the Urban Land Institute team, who is the key person that is putting together all of the amazing content. So all of the sessions, all of the programming, all of the forums that you will be able to have access to when you join us in Shanghai at the end of May. And those are the things that we're going to be talking about today. So again, get your questions front and center, anything that has to do with the summit, anything that has to do with the programming, anything that has to do with ULI, or even logistic things like how do I get there? How do I pay for things? Who else is coming? That's why we're putting this on, because we know people have lots of questions. And so this is your opportunity to ask the folks that are front and center of the summit as a whole. And so with that, I will pass the virtual mic over to Alan to give us a welcome and start off by perhaps telling us why it's so exciting that that the event is taking place in Shanghai this year. Alan, over to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Chelsea, and for everyone for joining us this afternoon. Before we get into the webinar details, I did want to just have let's say, a virtual show of hands, and you could do this by using the chat board. If you've ever been to a ULI Asia Pacific Summit before, whether that's in Asia Pacific or in other parts of the world. And I think for those who are new to experiencing a summit, it's really one of the most exciting and interesting and really fruitful aspects of being a member of ULI. And it's hard to describe, frankly speaking, in a webinar, but we're going to do our absolute best. And just to maybe a bit of further context, as Chelsea mentioned, this is the first time that we've had a webinar just to explain the summit, but it really because of the literally hundreds of questions and various types of interests that we've had from people in Asia, but honestly from all across the world. So we're using this webinar as a way to basically have effective communication. And then I think also Chelsea will be recording this, if I understand correctly, and then that'll be available to colleagues and members from across the world. So just as way of introduction, Alan Beebe, I'm the CEO of ULI for Asia Pacific and based here in Hong Kong. But we have the summit in different cities across the region year by year. So last year was in Hong Kong, the year prior was in Tokyo. Next year will be in Singapore. And we really made a strategic, thoughtful choice to have the summit in Shanghai this year, in part because we have a very significant member base in China, but also because I think, frankly speaking, many members have perhaps not had the opportunity to visit China in recent years, whether that was because of COVID or, as we all know, that there's a challenging, real estate market conditions in China. But for those of us who do go to China frequently, I think it's fair to say that there is an astounding level of innovation. There's an astounding level of dialogue in terms of how does China, transform, from the kind of the last quarter century of rapid growth into, a more sustainable model. But of course, the summit is not just about China. It happens to be located in Shanghai, but it's really meant to be a regional summit. So you, as a member visiting this or joining us at the summit, will have the opportunity to interact with people from literally all across the world, definitely all across Asia Pacific. And the rich content that my colleague Mark Cooper will go into, I think, will highlight that the program that we put together is a very rich one that that incorporates some of China, but really what's happening across the region and the world at large. I guess the other thing about the summit is it's a bit of a misnomer because it's really a week full of activities. So the main day will be on Wednesday, May 27th. But sort of both before and after, there's a whole range of activities and events, study tours, and so on, that Mark Cooper will elaborate on. So, but with that, I think what we might do is to turn things over to our program committee chair, Tim Wang, and our host committee chair, Hei Ming, to share, I guess, gentlemen, both, why Shanghai from your point of view, and maybe elaborate further on what our members and guests can expect when visiting Shanghai the week of May 25th. So either Hei Ming or Tim, if you'd like to take things from here.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Alan. To give everybody a perspective, I'm a Hong Kong guy, but I lived in Shanghai for 20 years. I have seen the changes in Shanghai. So from a business point of view, Shanghai is an international city with lots of business, like stock exchange, countless multinational corporation, and the port of Shanghai is the busiest in the world. And also for the last couple of years, there's a new China International Import and Export exhibition that attracts a lot of people from overseas. So if you come to Shanghai, I think it's a good opportunity for you to do networking, deal making, access a broader Chinese market. And from a cultural point of view, I think Shanghai is very interesting because Shanghai has all these heritage buildings like the French Concession, the Oban, the Yi Garden, some temples. But at the same time, you can see a lot of new buildings in Pudong and some new office buildings as well. And then there are also a lot of culture, art-related new museums. So things like Xintiandi, Tianjin Farm, and also the latest entertainment places called the Inns. So actually, we are planning a lot of tours. We do have free tours that people can go to. The first one is a cultural walk along the Bund, led by an architect. And there will be introduction about all those heritage buildings. And also for those who are more into this entertainment side, there will be a night walk from the Xintiandi area to Inns, which is a very interesting entertainment building. They convert the whole building into bars and restaurants and stage that people can go there and visit. So that will be an interesting place for both people who like nightlife. And also we specifically plan casino tour for people who can try out all the snacks along the street. And then at the end of it, you can have an experience to try the xiaolongbao, the making of xiaolongbao, which is also a famous cuisine in Shanghai. So these are interesting things. But on the business front, we arrange a lot of tours. There will be 6 to 7 project visits. Just to name a few, there will be a visit on the North Bund, Panong Tendi, which is built by Xingtian Suyon. They convert the cultural villages into interesting entertainment places. And also Qiantan, which is the next generation CBD. Also some visit to some affordable housing project by Wheelinker. And then the West Bund, Nanjing Road, downtown heritage projects. This is interesting. They convert a whole building into a ship. It's the LVMH project, which attract a lot of red book attention. As you come, you'll find it very entertaining. So just to name a few, there's a lot. So I recall the last Asia Pacific Summit was in 2019. Since then, actually, Shanghai changed a lot because of the COVID. So Shanghai now become more green. They put in a lot of landscape. They're linking the social creek and the Bund to a more walkable area. And also you'll find Shanghai more quiet because there are no more EV cars on the road. So you find it very nice walking along the street, and the air quality is much better. So just to name a few, there's a lot of things. If you don't come, I think you'll miss it. So do come. And then I pass on the team who will talk about the business side, the program.
Yes, thanks, Hei Ming. You covered most of the fun part, especially the kind of activities and the site tours. Shanghai, obviously, Shanghai is a nice city. It's a fun city. And Hei Ming mentioned the Qiantan. Actually, our event will be hosted in the Qiantan Shangri-La Hotel, which is a brand new Shangri-La in Shanghai. Very nice hotel. And obviously, Shanghai is a business center. It is the center of China's financial. It's a China financial center. A lot of the largest city in China, and as a visitor coming to going to Shanghai or going to China, I think it is interesting from a business perspective as well. Not only like Shanghai, China is the second largest economy in the world, but also if you look at China's supply chain, actually China is the largest manufacturer for 15 years, accounting for about 30+% of global manufacturing value add. China owns the full industrial system in the world. So if you do any business in any part of the world, if you're real estate, if you're non-real estate, you cannot overlook China. China has to be part of the overall supply chain. And the China economy as well contribute about 30% of the global economy growth. So that's highlighted so China is one of the major economic powerhouse. No matter what you do, you should check out what's happening in China. If anything happens in China, any development, AI, Hei Ming mentioned, technology, e-commerce, etc., or anything happens in China that will affect global economy. So when you come to China, when you're attending the ULI Shanghai event, you have the opportunity to meet with the other people visiting. You are able to visit some of the business, some of the tours we have organized for you to have a conversation with a local business to understand what's happening here. And that will further kind of understand how would that impact global economic and economics elsewhere. So because of that, we have designed a set of a program where we will be sharing how the AI will shape the world, how it going to affect the built environment where your business is in. And also, when we're going to talk about geopolitics, how it affect, what's happening in Middle East, how it's going to affect China, the world. And also, most of the sessions we will have a kind of a knowledge sharings. We will have the leaders in each sector to bring their up-to-date kind of information so you can understand, you can learn. But having said that, ULI is a platform. So by leveraging the platform, the event, you should be able to get more information and the new knowledge. So that will help everybody to shape their kind of a view and as well as investment ideas. China has been going through some difficult times in the past years, especially in the real estate sectors. However, if you look at what happened in China, everybody knows supply demand is kind of a element affecting the valuations. One good news is the supply has significantly dropped. And if you are doing business, if you are doing investment, you can because of the reduction of the new supply, it is obviously much easier for you underwrite new investment possibilities. So visiting Shanghai and have a chat with the other participant will be very beneficial to everybody. I look forward to meet all of you in Shanghai, and hopefully you will enjoy the session. So now I handed it over to my colleague Mark Cooper to elaborate the details of our exciting programs.
Well, thanks very much, Tim. I'm just going to share my screen so you can see a few slides to give us a guide to what's going on during the week of the summit. Okay, there we go. Why Shanghai? I mean, you can see from some of the cool buildings and landscapes there, that's a good enough reason to visit alone. But we have a lot more than that across the course of pretty much a full week of content. So we kick off on the forum day on the Tuesday, and in the morning we have what we call the ULI Mind sessions, which you might be familiar with if you attended the Hong Kong conference last year. You can see small groups of interactive conversations. Each topic, you can see some of the topics in the slide there. Each topic will have 3 sort of co-facilitators who will lead the discussion, perhaps with a short introduction. But the key thing here is that there's a small group of, say, 30 people who can just kind of chip in and have a chat and kind of take the stage themselves to talk about these important topics. And because we have 9 sessions, there's obviously quite a lot of things covered here, and you're perfectly welcome to scoot between them as well. Something that's not been mentioned in the slide there is that 2 of these sessions will also be showcasing some of ULI Asia Pacific's research content. So we'll have a presentation and discussion of the Home Attainability Index report, which will actually be published after the summit, and also our new infrastructure innovation report, which we're publishing jointly with ACOM. That's the first edition this year, so that's going to be an exciting bit of research, and obviously the intersection of real estate and infrastructure is kind of ever closer. And so I think it's going to be a really good topic for discussion as well. And then in the afternoon, the Capital Markets Forum, which is a full afternoon of content, as you might have guessed, discussing capital market, where people are investing and how, in what sectors, in what cities, and by what means. As Tim said, we'll be looking at potential opportunities in China real estate, also looking at the living sector, which is kind of a broad sector that's become very important to investors in Asia Pacific real estate, and then obviously a massive sector in both the United States and Europe. And we'll be hearing from both GPs and LPs about what they think about the current state of the market, where it's piquing their interest, what they're buying, what they're selling. And then also at the same time, we'll have the Future Leaders Forum, which has been curated by our younger members. And so we focus on lots of exciting dynamic things that I don't really understand, like social media. But there's also lots of talk about culture in real estate and about community and people-centric design. So there's a very good mix of interesting speakers and topics for that afternoon. And that will be a very different kind of style to the Capital Markets Forum, but equally fascinating. And then Wednesday is our main day, a really full day of content. And as Tim mentioned, we're going to have a discussion and, in fact, a debate about the impact of AI on the office sector, which I think is going to be a really lively and really interesting part of the program. We've also got a distinguished panel of people, experts on geopolitics and economics, to talk about the many, many things that are going on in the world and trying to tie that into Asia Pacific and how it's going to affect the economy, supply chains, and your business. And of course, we can't forget the data center sector, which again is obviously very strongly linked with the growth of AI. We'll be discussing that with investors and operators in that particular sector. And it's a full day. It will cover everything from the technology of China to the kind of the outlook for the world as a whole. So it's a real kind of mix of local, regional, and global content, which I think will be of interest to a very, very broad range of attendees. And there's a really good mix of people who will be taking part. So business leaders, whether they're from the design and planning side of real estate, but the capital markets and investment side, or even outside experts who can talk about technology and politics and other things that might be kind of slightly outside the general remit of a real estate audience. And then our study tours and more, which as you can see is on several days, both before and after the main summit days, where you can learn about projects, about technology, and about, as Hei Ming was saying, about the culture and the food of Shanghai. We've already spoken about some of these study tours that all look extremely interesting. A big focus on the kind of the greening and the upgrading, I guess, of Shanghai and its environment. Something on our Shenzhen CBD as well. Some of the really interesting projects that are going on. I mean, you can see from the photos in the slide there, the sort of thing that we have available. And I've mentioned 3 there, but there'll be more tours on that. So there's an awful lot of options for people. And what I haven't included in here is the social things as well. So there'll be plenty of chances to kind of get out and see what Shanghai at night is like. And finally, a very exciting part of the event is this post-summit study tour at Hangzhou, talking about AI and robotics. So this is going to be really fascinating. I shall be on it. We've got a tour of some of the companies you can see below, like Unitree, one of the leaders in robotics. And we'll get to kind of see people's campuses and their factories and their facilities and talk to people who are actually doing the technology things that are shaping our future lives. And as well as that, there's going to be time to take in some of the culture and scenery of Hangzhou, which is one of China's, I think, prettiest cities, it's fair to say, and a fantastic place to visit. Even if you're not in real estate, the technology and cultural aspects will be fascinating. And there you have it. That actually takes us up to the Saturday. That's the scope of the summit. There's an awful lot of things there to do. It's impossible to do everything, but everything that's within there will be worthwhile. And yeah, I hope to see you there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mark, for sharing, and thank you to Alan, Hei Ming, and Tim. I don't see any questions in the Q&A, but just a reminder, pop them in there. This is your opportunity to ask any questions that you have about the summit content, the people, the place, etc. But I have a couple of questions actually in the meantime. And I would love to know because we were talking earlier about how many summits everybody's been to, and I know for myself, when I first started in the real estate industry 10 years ago, I didn't know anybody, and ULI was a really sort of formative community that introduced me to so many amazing people that I have learned from, that have provided job opportunities, that have become really good friends. And I think I've been to 10 summits now, mostly in Asia and then one in the US. But I would love to know from Alan and Hei Ming and Tim, all of whom have obviously been to tons of summits, if you had to choose one memory from one summit that really stood out in terms of something that was impactful, whether it was an insight or somebody that you met or just a city that you had never been to before, what would it be and what summit was it from? And same for Mark as well, of course. Sorry.
Wow. Well, maybe I'll take an initial crack at that. It's a tough yet easy question. So, but I would say for me it was Tokyo, and in part because I was not so familiar with Japan, um, and I just met so many interesting people, and I think so many stereotypes that I had of how things work in Japan were dismantled. So I left not very well versed or educated on Japan, but excuse me, I arrived, but then I left, feeling that I just learned a lot more.
I was going to say I have a kind of sort of split experience with ULI summits in that last year's was the first one that I've attended as kind of somebody involved with it. But I've attended an awful lot, almost all in the Asia Pac region, both annual summits and also some of the various local ones. I've been to Singapore and Hong Kong and the Japan fall and spring conferences. And I think they're all great. I think last year's was kind of a big sort of event for me because having kind of been on the inside of it, you appreciate it slightly differently once you see it. I think I likened it to the summit that's delivered is like a glorious swan that sort of glides over the landscape. Whereas only if you've been involved, you know about the frantically paddling feet under the water. But if you come as a guest, then it's all swan for you, so it'll be fine.
Great analogy, Mark.
Yeah, I love that too. Hey Ming or Tim, any standout moments for you that you'd like to share?
Yeah,
Yes, actually, I attend ULI Asia-based Summit in all the cities, Hong Kong, Singapore, Tokyo, Shanghai, and I also attend global ULI Summit in the US as well. The US one is really big. It's kind of 5 to 10 times bigger than the Shanghai one and the other Asia Pacific one. But going back to Asia Pacific, I think the one in 2019 in Shanghai is quite memorable. I think the content are excellent. And also the most memorable part is we have a run early in the morning before the summit. Everybody, the global chair also come and some of the members, we have a run along the bund. So everybody enjoy. After the run, they go to the summit right away. So that's quite memorable. So that's why this year we organize all those interesting cultural things so that people not just come here for business. You can enjoy the city as well.
Yeah, so I have attended a few of them, and yes, one of the memorable event. It's actually the same as where Alan went, the Japan one. What left was kind of a thinking of so Japan, say as an economy has not been growing for many years, but real estate investment has been profitable for most of the institutions for the past decades or so. Why is that? Um, and and in some of the like kind of developing countries, there are economic growth, but not everybody is making money. It's a mixed kind of a feeling on the result. And why is that? It has a lot of kind of a that have actually have a lot of different factors, element, and the reasons of that kind of a have that kind of a bifurcated result. So having an event where you are able to learn and think and have some useful takeaway will be also helpful for whoever coming to the event. That is my kind of a. That's why I think it is a good, and I learn quite a bit.
Yeah, and Tim, maybe just to add to that, I think for this year's summit in Shanghai, um, China is obviously a very complex, multidimensional country. I also lived like Hei Ming in China for like 20 years, but I was living in Beijing, and just understanding Shanghai from Beijing was always a new perspective. But I think in the last years, so many people have not had the opportunity to visit Shanghai, much less China. And what we see in the media, what you hear, even in the ULI research reports, it doesn't really tell the full story of the real estate landscape, the economic landscape, and the pace of change, that you were describing earlier. So I think people who do attend, they will leave much more knowledgeable and insightful, and can really apply some of the learnings to their businesses.
Thanks, Alan. That's actually an excellent segue into one of the questions that we've had from the audience. So thanks for throwing your questions in there. It's a logistical question, which I think is something that a lot of us worry about, especially if we haven't been in China for a while. And Hei Ming, you said something that I thought was great, which is like, it's open now, everybody, people can come, it's easy. So people want to know, how do I get around? How do I get from the airport to the venue? How do I get from the venue to the other locations where events are happening? How does transportation work? And I think maybe it would be great to just kind of touch on some of the transportation, payment, accessibility kinds of questions that people that haven't been to China in a long time may have.
Yeah, and I think we'll turn that over to Hei Ming as the chair of our host committee. But before that, I would preface it that many people from outside of China do not even need a visa to visit China, and that's a recent development. And we're monitoring that very carefully. So if you have questions on whether you need a visa, or not, there's transit visas available, et cetera. So I think once you arrive in China, then I think to Chelsea's point, there are unique ways of getting around. So maybe, Amy, you can elaborate on that.
Yes, okay. First of all, I think from the airport, it's very easy. You can take a taxi or a Uber to all the places, to your hotel. And since this year, the venue is in Pudong. So coming from Pudong Airport to the venue, I think it's around half an hour. And then once you arrive at the venue, it's a lot of landscape around the Qiantan area. And actually, if people would like to jog, you can jog to the waterfront from the hotel. I think probably it's 10 minutes jogging to the waterfront. And then Pudong is not that walkable, relatively speaking. But if you go to Puxi, you go to the old Shanghai area, like the French Concession, the Bund area, most of the places are very walkable. You just walk around, lots of historical sites that you can visit. So it's easy to go around. And then you just, whenever you are tired, you just go on to DE, and then you can go back to the hotel easily.
Yeah. And I guess related to that, Hei Ming, I would probably suggest people do not need to bring a lot of cash. China has become a pretty, cashless society. So I know, Chelsea, that you've shared some of that information, with registrants, but there might be points to elaborate just in terms of what to do, in terms of which apps to download, and how to get everything sort of set up so you have a great week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think even from my own personal perspective, when I was going to China quite frequently before COVID, it was already becoming a cashless place, but it wasn't that easy for international travelers because in order to use WeChat Pay, you needed to have a Chinese phone number. But if you didn't live in China, then you couldn't pay with an international credit card. All of those things don't exist anymore. It's all open. So you can download WeChat, you can use it for all of your messaging, you can upload an international credit card and use it for payment just like anybody that lives in China does. You can access Didi, which is the transportation app that everybody uses in China, in English through WeChat and use your international credit card. It works just like Uber, and it's actually super straightforward. So it's definitely way easier to get around and pay for things now than it was even 2 years ago when I went back to China right after COVID. So I think that's definitely something that makes visiting a lot easier. I was actually just there 2 weekends ago, and I took the trains all the way up to Guilin through Hong Kong, and had zero issues even with my very, I would say, mediocre Mandarin, to say the least.
You're too humble, Chelsea.
Yeah, just to add on to what Chelsea is saying, other than walking around taking DD, I think if for those who have not been to China, taking the high-speed train is quite an experience. For example, going from Shanghai to Hangzhou, if you drive by car, it took you 2.5 hours. And you took a train, it's kind of probably 50 minutes. Sometimes even the fastest one is 45 minutes. So that is quite an experience as well.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for that. I think that just to kind of round out the logistics piece, I mean, we've put together lots of really easy to understand guides that are on the Summit website, and also we'll be putting stuff on social media. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to anybody here about questions about visas, or if you're like, what the heck is Didi? How does that work? We're all here to answer all of those questions. But I think the main takeaway is it's way easier to get around China now than it was even a year ago. And that's one of the reasons why we're so excited to have the summit in Shanghai, is because it's an amazing city, but it's also not the accessibility isn't a barrier anymore.
Yeah.
I would love, sorry, Alan, did you have something else to say about that?
Oh, no, go ahead and continue. I do have another point, but please continue.
I was gonna pivot to another question, so please go ahead, and then I'll ask the next one.
Yeah, I was just going to add, in terms of logistics, if you will, that we'll have simultaneous translation, at the summit, at least for the main day. And part of that is to encourage our Chinese colleagues and members to join and to participate fully, because the program essentially will be in English. And along with that, we have a bring a business partner uh, promotion that we're using to have members invite non-members, and we'll definitely be doing that, for the ability to invite non-member Chinese companies or executives. So I think that'll be an additional dimension, to the summit, and an opportunity to really interact and intermingle and network, with Chinese executives from across the country.
Well, you're setting up such wonderful segues, because I think that's a great place to answer to address one of the questions that people had, which is, who are the people that are speaking? And we talked about all of the great programming. Thanks for overviewing that, Mark. But maybe you can tell us a little bit more about some of the people that we'll be hearing from, some of the thought leaders that are a part of the program. The specific question was, is there a keynote? And so maybe you can address a little bit more about, the different kinds of formats and the different speakers that we're excited to welcome.
Sure. So the initial answer to that is that there isn't a keynote as such. It was a decision taken by ExCo and the programming committee that a kind of paid for keynote speaker who opens up on the morning to talk about their book or their project was not necessarily the best use of our kind of facilities, especially as a members organization. But what we will have is a series of industry leaders in head-to-heads dotted around the program over both main summit days. We'll have an introductory sort of economics session from the chief economist at Oxford Economics for the region. And we will have leaders like Dr. David Pan, who is the Dean of the Schwarzman Scholars Program at Tsinghua University, and so is a kind of an expert on politics and economics, for example. And we will also have lots of people who are industry leaders. So, for example, we have Adi Bhargava, who runs the Asia Pac portfolio for ADIA, Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, who's going to be taking part in the Capital Markets Forum. And we have kind of member leaders like John Tanaka, who's the regional CEO for Heinz, who will also be taking part in that forum as well, and a range of people. So it's not just kind of people from the sort of the real estate investment side. We've got a lot of people from kind of the planning and engineering and other sides as well. So there's a very broad range of speakers, but we don't have that kind of, the chat with a book out kind of presentation to start off with this time.
Alan, Hei Ming, Tim, any other thoughts from your sides again around some of the sort of flagship folks that are going to be speaking at the summit this year?
Yeah, well, less about the flagship, individuals, but I do think, and Mark touched on this, but one of the aspects of the summit this year I think will be very nice is the ULI Minds. And these are really kind of, I think the general idea is that we have so many brilliant, insightful members in the room that it's kind of a waste or a pity to have everybody just passively participating but not contributing. So ULI Minds is a new format that we're introducing that allows for a lot more interaction and sharing of ideas and debating of ideas. So I think that'll be one of the defining features of the summit this year as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
It's not just about people kind of don't just sit there and have people tell you things. This is a chance for those ULI Minds sessions are off the record conversations where you can speak freely and say anything, and get to learn directly from your peers about what's happening in a particular topic area.
Yeah, because I think and Hei Ming kind of alluded to this with these summits in the US, they are huge. There's like 5,000 plus people. So there's a bit of randomness to who you're going to meet, what discussions you'll have. So this is more intimate, around 500, but even 500 is a challenge. So I think we're designing the summit in a way, and the programs and the studies tours in a way that's much more intimate and allows members to interact and to learn from one another in ways that like a traditional conference doesn't really achieve.
I'm excited about ULI Minds. I think it's going to be super engaging.
Yeah.
I think we've addressed all the questions from the audience. Is there any last sort of parting thoughts that anybody would like to share? Throw them in the chat. But I would love to know from each of you, rapid fire, what's the one thing that you're most excited about for the summit? What are you looking forward to the most if you had to choose one?
Tim, you want to go first? I can, but maybe Tim or Amy, you want to go first?
Alan, you go first.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, first off, it's always the individuals that I have the chance to meet, and this year I think is going to be a particularly interesting year, as Tim alluded to, with the geopolitical and economic kind of situation or environment that we live in. I'm just expecting a whole range of like very interesting discussions. And then secondly is the food. You cannot go to China and definitely cannot go to Shanghai without having some great food. And I know that Hei Ming, that the host committee has curated, and I think ULI China members have curated. So these are not just like, going on to, Meituan or something and just choosing a bunch of places to eat. These are places that our members go to regularly and love, and so they are recommending them. So it's the equivalent of a ULI Michelin 5-star tour of Shanghai. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. And I guess the level, if you look at the kind of a tourism numbers of the year-on-year increase, So I have a lot of friends living outside China. So China has become their number one travel target in the recent years. It is because the numbers of cities, sceneries has been fantastic and clean as you cannot imagine, and also as well as the cost. If you compare your kind of in Singapore, what do you use it? Um, Grab, right? In
Yeah.
US, you have Uber. In China, you have Didi. So the cost, if you are like compare with Singapore dollar to like China's cost, is like about if forget about the currency conversion, is about kind of a quarter. Uh, if you convert currency, then is kind of about 1/10 of the cost.
Right.
Yeah, it applies to food and there's other things as well. So it is
Yeah. For sure.
how cheap. But that's how it's kind of, and also if you enjoy the high-speed train in China, as well, it's the super quick and nice. But in terms of if you go back to the conference, you meet a lot of interesting people, and as Alan mentioned, not only geopolitics, the kind of questions, but also those capital market discussions, and I guess just a share of knowledge is it's not only just an eye-opening trip, but also a kind of a gathering for like-minded people just to learn from each other, which will bring a lot of new ideas to what we do day by day.
Yeah, I totally agree with Tim. I think the beauty about UI event is if you go there more than once, you will be knowing a lot of friends. So coming to the next event, you first of all you will meet your friends, and secondly you will meet some new friends. So I'm looking forward to kind of saying hello and catch up with all those fellow members and chit chat about what's happening in their part of the world and what's happening in my part of the world and share all the latest interesting things together.
Okay, just for me, I guess it's I think that I suppose there's a lot of aspects to it, but then one of the main ones is that it's an opportunity to take the temperature of the region in terms of what people are thinking about in real estate, and from a very broad range of people as well, because ULI has such a broad base of members. And you know, those things that I learn, the little conversations that you have, are all things that will inform our research for the year ahead.
Wonderful. I couldn't agree more, and I don't actually have anything to add because I feel like I've experienced all of those things that you shared, and that's why I keep coming back, after 10 years. So with that, I would love to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, Alan, Hei Ming, Mark, and Tim, as well as everybody that joined us. A couple of final reminders. First of all, early bird pricing has been extended until the end of April. So if you were on the fence and you said, gosh, I don't know how I'm going to pay for things, I don't know how to get around Shanghai, well, now you know it's really easy. So get in there and get your ticket before the prices increase on the 1st of May. And then we've got some great incentives, like Alan mentioned, to bring a business partner, which is really about, extending the amazing experience and connections that we're building through Urban Land Institute to people that we think would add value to the community. If you have any further questions, as after this, the recording we will be posting online. You can go back and reference, and if you have questions you didn't put into the chat, then please feel free to reach out to any of us. With that, thank you all very much for joining, and look forward to seeing everyone in May in Shanghai. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Chelsea and team. Thank you.
Thank you.